What kind of advice do you have for making tenant management easy?
One of the big things that my clients have been doing recently has been having automatic debits going into their account, where they give their tenant their bank information, and they just say you need to set this up, where it's actually going to automatically take the money out of your account on the first of the month.
Yep.
And that way they don't ever have to handle checks. If it bounces, it's going to obviously bounce right at that time. They know in advance. And the other thing it kind of puts in a different position is that money is being taken out. So if they have money in their account, it's going to be taken rather than maybe spent on, some other payment or something else, so that it's more of an automatic thing, which makes a big difference.
And they're financially secure because they're not afraid of money coming out of their account without them controlling.
How might someone do that? Is that something you like to work with a renters management type of?
Most banks you can set up an ACH direct deposit into your bank. So you give them your bank account, which should, if you own property, you should have one bank account tied to that exact property. Mm-hmm. So you would give them that direct deposit information, and then they can pull out of their bank. There's other ways, like I have Square Cash is something. There's different apps out there that reviews Venmo, stuff that you can pay through this third party transaction to make sure it's cleared. So there's different ways, but always I highly suggest making sure it's electronic payments. That way you're not dealing with, I sent the rent check in. I'm going to the Thanksgiving break. It's not in my mailbox, and now you're threatening to evict your tenant when the check is really in transit. Yeah. So you're not dealing with that, no paper anymore. But make sure you get everything in writing. So if there's communication on a problem with your tenant, always have a text message or an email saved of some sort if there's a problem. If it's communication, just lovey-dovey stuff, that's fine. But make sure if it's any concrete information, it's always in writing.
Now, somebody listening to all this, talking about the trepidations or fears of investment, might have just rolled their eyes a little bit. These are all things that you like to help with, right?
Yes.
Yep.
So, talk to us about that.
A couple other things that I've found over time, and I know Drew does the same thing, is when a person signs the initial lease, you put language in that lease that 90 days or maybe even further out than that they need to tell you whether they're going to renew that lease. Mm-hmm. And the reason why you do that is a lot of novice landlords will start trying to rent their property maybe a month before, and the people that you get that are looking for a place to move in in, say, like 2 or 3 weeks aren't really the people that you want to tend to rent to. No. Because they're more desperate. They might be the odd roommate that's getting kicked out of a place because no one likes them, or they're definitely not people that plan. You'll find that if you, let's say for example, you have a unit coming up in September 1st, you want to be starting to market that, I would say at the latest in June.
Yep.
And that way you've got people looking in advance. I know at the University of Minnesota, for example, people actually rent their properties in December of the previous year for the next September. They're that far in advance. And it certainly, in certain markets, that probably doesn't make a lot of sense because people don't look that far in advance. But the people that start, looking like 30 days out, you're not going to get the best tenants. And it's something that you can alleviate very easily. The other thing that we both would recommend and have done it a number of times, one of the biggest time wasters as an owner is to keep going out to the property every time a new person wants to go look at it. The way the market is right now, set it up like an open house where you have from, say, 1 to 3 on a Saturday that people can come out and look at it. That's the only time it's available. The current tenants will actually clean the place because it's only once a week rather than every day. They won't get upset because you're showing it multiple times. And then for you, you're only there from a small window. And then the final thing that makes it beautiful is you'll have a number of people showing up at the exact same time. It creates urgency where they see 4 or 5 other groups of tenants rather than they're the only ones out there. It's going to make them want to make a decision really quickly rather than waiting. I had one time where I had 5 sets of people and 3 of them were almost fighting over the property because they were there at the exact same time. And that works extremely well.